How much do VPATs cost? This is a question that comes up a lot. And with accessible.org, the answer is very easy. It's $550 plus the cost of the audit. So let's go over how we arrive at a final quote for our clients. The $550 is the cost for the VPAT service itself. So remember that a VPAT is simply a templated document that needs to be filled in. And then once filled in and completed, it creates an accessibility conformance report. So this is our charge for this service. Now, keep in mind that this is for the $550 is for the WCAG edition of the VPAT, and there are other editions. So if you would like a different edition, it's simply going to be a small additional charge. It will not exceed $1,000 in total for the VPAT service. Now, the other part of this calculation is the audit. And so with accessible.org for audits, we typically charge between $200 and $350 per page or screen of your digital asset. So let's say your digital asset is a web app and it consists of 10 screens. You're going to multiply 10 by, let's take the middle of this range, $275 to arrive at your audit cost. And so with the audit, what we will do is we will take those results and then use those results to fill in the accessibility table of the VPAT. Now, let's add a little more context for audits to explain what's going on here. So with an audit, what we do is we select a technical standard and then we define a scope. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grade the digital asset. So grade your product or service against the technical standard. All right, so what's a technical standard? Well, this could be, let's take the example of WCAG version 2.1 conformance level AA. That could be our technical standard. And then we could define the scope. Let's recall the web app illustration. Let's take the 10 screens and make those the scope of this audit. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at those screens and we're going to be grading those against the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines version 2.1 conformance level AA. And then we're going to identify in detail any instances of nonconformance with this technical standard. And for context, WCAG 2.1 AA consists of 50 success criteria. So these are the criteria that we're going to be grading your digital asset against. And if your digital asset does not meet any of the criteria, then that is going to be reported on not only in the audit, but that's also going to show up in the ACR. And then so the last bullet point I have here on the audit column of this graphic is that we are going to create a clear, easy to understand report that you as the client will receive, regardless of whether you simply want the ACR or not. The audit report is included with our service. So make sure that if you are going with another service provider, make sure you are also getting the audit report in addition to the accessibility conformance report, because an audit is necessary for an ACR, so that's going to be a part of this, so you may as well receive that report. Now, on this third column here, I have ACR, and so this is where we finally get to the Accessibility Conformance Report, which is what clients are really after when they're requesting a VPAT. Now, the first bullet point I have here is an important stopping point or a pausing point, because you may want to pause before you get the documentation and clean up some of the accessibility issues and optimally resolve all of them so that your asset is fully conformant with the technical standard. Now, this is at the client's option. Sometimes clients just want the ACR document and then they will work on accessibility afterwards, but their priority is simply getting the document. So sometimes clients don't want to undergo remediation before the ACR is issued. But for those clients that do, that is an option. So you can take the audit report, begin resolving those issues, and then we can go and re-audit for those issues that were found initially and go back and see which one of those were resolved. And so we can continue this process on down to where we eliminate or as many accessibility issues as possible have been resolved. So that's an option when it comes to getting an ACR, is you can work on accessibility before you get the final report. And so the ACR, again, it stands for Accessibility Conformance Report. Note that the VPAT and ACR terminology are used interchangeably. So VPAT, again, is just the templated document. The ACR is the actual completed document. So the VPAT turns into an ACR once it's completed. And then this next bullet point is what I was just mentioning, is that the audit report is going to be there. So just make sure whatever provider you go with, you still get that audit report so that you know what accessibility issues exist, because it's going to have much more detail than an ACR will. Remember that for the ACR, it's created from the VPAT template, and the VPAT, it really just has the end result. It's just like the final grades, whereas the audit gives you more context and details behind the final grade. And then the last bullet point I have here is produce a report upon request to win contracts. So that is what clients are asking for when they're asking for VPATs. What they really want is an ACR that they can provide to buyers to show buyers an accounting of the accessibility for their product or service. So that's what I wanted to cover today, is go into not only the cost of the VPAT services, but also a breakdown so that you have a better feel for what goes into the service, what you will get out of it. And then I have here also on the screen a screenshot of the opening page of the VPAT template. It's for the final section where we would use it to fill it in and create the ACR. We have the details, which also need to be filled in. And then below this, which is not shown, is the table. And that's really the material portion of the ACR, because that gets into the actual accessibility of the product or service. And I have many other videos where I've gone into detail on what it comprises the VPAT. So I will include more information in the description, as well as a link to the prices page on accessible.org, where you can learn more about our services. And if you need help with VPAT services, feel free to reach out. I will include a link to the contact page for accessible.org in the description.